The Radioddity GA-5WB, the Vero N76, and the BTECH UV Pro are all the same radio. Let's update the radio's firmware and tour the accompanying smartphone app. One of the recent releases in the mid-priced ham HT market is the Radioddity GA-5WB, which is also being sold as the Vero N76 and the BTECH UV Pro. These all sell for about $160 to $170. These full-feature dual-band FM HTs include features such as a high intrusion protection score, Bluetooth connectivity, and built-in APRS. I'll leave a link to my radio review on the end card and in the description. The other thing that sets this radio apart is its associated smartphone app. Using its Bluetooth capability, you can pair the radio to your smartphone and make use of an expanded set of features and usability aids that makes the radio a very effective communications tool. As we get started, thanks for watching the Gadget Talk channel, where we do reviews and how-tos on a variety of electronic gadgets. Please click the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. There's a join button below the video that links to a short video describing why you might want to become a channel member. Now, let's continue. Today, we're going to focus on the radio smartphone app. You get the app by going to your App Store and finding and installing the HT app. Its icon is a green square with circles in it. It's easy to connect to the radio. Simply click on the pair choice near the bottom of the main menu. Your radio's transmit and receive LED will flash, and with the app open, you'll be asked if you want to pair with the device. Once paired, you normally won't have to go through this process again. Let's start with upgrading the firmware. Depending on when you got your radio, you may or may not have to do this, and the firmware version number may be different than what you'll see here, depending upon when you're watching this video. So here we have the HT app running. I've got it paired to my GA-5WB, and I want to go in and make changes to the firmware. There's a new firmware release out, and I'm anxious to see how that improves the radio. And so when I go up here to these top three buttons, I can go to device settings, and device settings come in, and I can see that the firmware version is 0.6.9, and if I click on that, it comes up and it says that the new firmware is 0.7.4. And it says it does these things: optimizes receiving, sensitivity, teammate information, supports up to 30 records. It improves the APRS configuration. And when I'm sending APRS messages, a colon can be used to separate the recipient and the message contact. That's handy. It added a programming button and a couple of other things. So an important note on the update process, it says if the screen fails to light up after the firmware update, follow these steps to initialize, and it says turn off the radio, hold the OK button, the green key, while holding the OK button, turn on the radio again. So let's hope it goes well, and so we're going to hit download. So after clicking the download, it comes up with 7.4. It says start. So let's click the start button and see what we get. It says it's transferring data. It will take up to 4 minutes, and it's counting up. Those are all good signs. Now the data transfer is complete, and it's asking whether we want to continue the upgrade process, and that will reboot before the process happens, and we do. So we'll click OK. Now on the radio it says updating firmware. Please do not turn off the power. That probably means it would be a good idea to have a fully charged battery when you're doing this. Took about 30 seconds and the radio is rebooting. The radio name stayed on the screen for maybe 5 or 10 seconds, and then now it came back to its previous settings with the dual channels on display. And as you can see here, it says the update is complete. There are a couple of little tricks if things don't go as you expect. When you tap on the firmware version item, you should get a screen that says that there's an update and its number. If you get a screen that says no update available, quickly tap that notice for 10 or more times and the update notice should appear. Obviously, check to see whether the number that comes up is what you currently have or don't have on your radio. The second thing is if when you tap the download button at the bottom of the update screen, it says retry, then click it again. In my case, the retry button always returned. As with many things involving software, the fix was to uninstall the app and reinstall it. When I did that, the firmware downloaded as you saw in the previous clip. Now, with that out of the way, let's do a tour of the app. As you'll see, it's pretty cool. So here's the HT app that we've got going. And to get this connected, it's just a matter of going in that main menu of the radio down to the bottom where it says pairing, clicking the pairing option. The little LED at the top will alternate red and green, and then open this app and it'll ask you if you want to pair. And so that's all pretty easy. There's a couple of things here about the app though that we do want to be mindful of. First thing we want to do is go up here and click these three little dots and go up to settings, and we want to turn the simple mode off, and so that's going to impact some of the other screens that we see, and we want some of the advanced features, and so the simple mode needs to be turned off. Now the other thing I want to point out to you is if we scroll from the left, we can get all of our various groups displayed, and there are a number of groups here, sometimes referred to as zones, and you can see I have this particular zone set up with my VHF repeaters here in the area, and then I've put APRS in channel 16, and then I can make changes such as power setting and turn the FM radio on, do the reverse or talk around. That is all available here, plus some volume control here. Up here at the top, I can make choices between the two groups that I have. I've got one called VHF base, which is my VHF local repeaters, one called UHF base, which is my UHF local repeaters. If I click on this, it'll switch, and you can see the various things changed here. And also note that I've got APRS in channel 16. That'll become important here in just a minute. This will turn on the FM radio. This will open up settings, and this one will open up a connection. And then again, we've got another drop down up here that gives us still more things to deal with. And so one of the things about this app is that it's got a lot of stuff and some of it's hidden, to include even more stuff here, such as renaming or deleting this device. We can pair a new device, we can join a network channel if we're using kind of that push to talk over cellular kind of tools that are available. We can monitor our audio connections and some of these other things that I'll get back to here in just a minute. So let's put this away and look at a couple of other things. So we'll go up here and look at some of the things that are going to be important to us. Now we already looked at settings where we turned the simple mode off, but there are more here that we need to be aware of. So ID signaling is here. This opens up a new dialog. If you put in your call sign, whether you want the radio to tell people where you are, to allow position checking, internet sharing, I've got that off. Radio sharing, if you're in APRS mode, is going to go every 6 minutes. You can make changes there. You can send your voltage if you want to. I don't particularly need to send my voltage with my APRS. And then here is the message, and we can get a message dialog. And with this latest version of the software, the message you put in is the addressee colon and then the message, and that will all go out. This isn't intended to be an APRS tutorial, but we'll talk a bit about APRS. So for example, I've used the SMS text app that's available out there to get a text to my phone. It worked pretty easily. I've used WeatherBot to get a forecast, just WXBOT:today to get today's forecast and so forth. The thing about messages is I think you need really to kind of go back and clear them, otherwise you're going to end up sending them when the radio reports, if it sees that it has a message to send. And those are the kind of things you probably only want to send once. So here we have still another settings knob, and that's going to take us to that initial settings page. So we've looked at ID settings. Now this is an important one here, and that's the channel manager. And so if you look here, here is where I have all those channels, and I use the channel manager. These are just frequencies that came in the radio. So if I click on this, it opens up, and I can give it a title, and I can do all of this good stuff. Or in my case, I want to delete it, so I'm going to drop it out. But here are the ones that I've added. And so if I wanted to go through here, I've got a bunch of them. They're all mixed up. They're just in the order that I put them in. But if I wanted to add a new one, I can go here to add. I can give it a title. I'm going to click more, and that's going to open up the things you're going to need for a repeater. So I can put in the receive, the transmit, a receive DCS code if it needs it, a transmit CCTSS or DCS code if it needs it. Most repeaters do, of course. Power, bandwidth, and then a number of other things that you can set here. And this pre-de-emphasis is, think of it as a compander to put the audio into an area where the radio can best process that audio signal. And then you just click save, and now you've got your new channel. And in this case, I'm going to discard. And so adding channels is really pretty easy, but the way this works is that's different, is that we're going to go to the group manager, and here we can add groups. So you can add a new group by clicking here, or you can contribute or add to the various channels in the groups you've already established. So if I click here, you can see all of those channels there. And then if I want a new one, I can just click this link. It opens to that list in the channel manager, and I can just click it. And when I do that, that will add the channel to that group. And so that makes it really easy to manage your groups, those groups of 16 channels, without going in and adding the information here. We can add it in the channel manager, and then it becomes available to all of the groups. Now we're back here. Let's take a look at our APRS settings box. So we get our call sign, give yourself an SSID that is appropriate. Here is the password. You can get a passcode by clicking this or verify your passcode. I have mine written down. It tells me that my passcode is correct. I can use my phone as an iGate, and so if I turn that on, anything that my radio receives, the app collects, will transfer it in the internet to one of the servers. I've got North America set. I've got all of these on, and then I've limited my receive range to 200 kilometers. This you can expand. You can go down a little bit at a time by just kind of dragging this with your finger on this. You could probably spin it. As you can probably see, I'm using this on a computer, and so it really doesn't spin very well. However, you can just double click the number and then make a change. And you can see now I've got it at 150 kilometers. This limits the number of inputs that you get. There are a lot of APRS weather stations out there, and so at 1,000 kilometer, it takes about 2 cycles of the APRS broadcast to completely fill your message list. So my advice would be to limit this to a more reasonable range. Here we can auto share over the internet. The location source is going to come from the phone. The interval is at 30 minutes. If you click on icon, you can pick the appropriate icon. So this is a handy talkie, so I've got the little walking figure as my icon. You can send again the voltage. I'm not going to do that. And then you can also send your operating frequency. If you are in the A register and you're using APRS in the B register, and so you're talking on, say, the VHF call channel, or if you're driving around and you're monitoring the VHF call channel, if you have this turned on, when your radio beacons, it's going to say, hey, I'm on 146.520. So if somebody wanted to call you on the radio, they would know what frequency you're monitoring. Okay, offline maps. We can go in here and you can make some choices in terms of the offline maps that you may want to use. There's more about that in the instructions. Speaking of which, the instructions are available online, and they're really pretty good. It's like a 40-page instruction booklet that lists each of these options and gives a brief explanations for them. So in terms of instructions for the app, it's really pretty good. We've talked about simple mode, whether we want to use imperial units or not, keeping the screen on the radio, and these other options here are available to you. So we've looked at ID signaling, channel manager, group manager, APRS, offline maps, all of these kinds of things. And so at this point, let's go back another step. Now we've got another menu access point, and we've got here the three little dots. Let's look at the hamburger menu. And the hamburger menu just opens up the various groups that are available. And so if we go to settings up here, we have device settings, which we've looked at. And this is one of the interesting things about this app, is that, oh my goodness, there's so many different ways to get to these things that it's really easy to get lost in. So again, here we've got our general settings. Now these are the things that are in the radio. And so, we can set our time talk limit, hold time is off, whether we want squelch tail elimination, digital mute, mic gain, all of the things that are in the menus of the radio. This is how we can set those here in the app instead of going through the menu systems on the radio. Signaling settings, we can go to software settings. Here is where in APRS I've told it to use channel 16. So on my groups, I'm going to put APRS channel in channel 16 in all the groups. So regardless of the group I have active, channel 16 is going to be what goes out APRS wise, so I'm not inadvertently broadcasting an APRS signal out on the VHF call or on a repeater signal. Now if I go to software settings, here we are again. We've been to this place before, so it's just another way to get to these various menu items. Now in connection management, we've seen that. Here's my device. If I wanted to scan or load another device, this is how I would make that choice. In groups and channels, we've been here before. And this is labeled a little differently. And so sometimes you're just going to have to kind of explore. And then in programmable buttons, this is how I have my programmable buttons, side key buttons programmed. So side key 1, I've got a short click to turn on the FM radio, double click for scan, long press to turn the monitor function. Side key 2, short click is a way to change power from high, medium, and low. A double click will move the channel group up 1, and a long press will move the channel group down 1. So I can maneuver through the channels using the P2 or side key number 2. There are a lot of choices here. Let me show you just quickly of the things that you can assign to these various side keys. And so knock yourself out. Do the things that make sense to you. And here we've got the firmware version. We've looked at that already in terms of upgrading the firmware. But if we click this, it'll come up and it says no updates are available because I just updated it the other day. If you're getting this and you don't have at least 7.4, you can click here like 10 times, 10 or 12 times, and it'll give you the update screen. That's one of the little hacks. And so this is what that screen looks like. But in this case, I'm sure there's not an update because I just updated it. So let's go over to the APRS just real quick and look at a couple of things there that you might find interesting. So here's a list of messages in my APRS, and you can turn them on and off. I had it on a little bit last night. These are the ones that came through. If I want to clear this out, I can go up here to this little 3-dot menu and clear it all out. I can turn it on the next time it reads APRS messages, it'll start to populate. As you can see, that's happening right now. Now, if I want to respond to one of these, I can click this, and a message box opens up. And here you can see that address, colon, and then space for the message. Now, in a pinch, you can just delete all this and start with your own addressee. I found that that works. Right here, you can see that this was the one that I sent out. And so it's my call sign. It acknowledged it, going to WeatherBot, and then here is the WeatherBot forecast. So we'll get rid of this little keyboard and we'll go back to messages, and then we can get a map. And in some cases, when we click on these messages that come in, it'll give us some of the information that you're used to seeing on these various maps, where that individual is. Sometimes you'll see a little blue line on it. It'll tell you how far away they're coming from. You know, in this case, that one I clicked on is way south of town on the way down to Tucson. Again, I've got a basic APRS video on the channel. I'd encourage you to take a look at that. And that one is focused on APRS Droid software. However, it works very similar to this. Now, checking the messages and composing messages directly on the radio is possible. And there's a little keyboard that has very, very tiny letters that you can use the rocker panels to move around and pick your letters to compose it. You can also use the keyboards if you have a little display that shows what the ABC key assignments are on the basic, older text phones. So you just press each button a couple times to get the letter you want and work your way through the message that way. APRS messages on radios are not the easiest thing in the world, but certainly doable. Much easier on this app. You can control the radio through the app. Of course, you can control the radio on the radio itself, but this is just an easy way to go about doing that. So it's a really comprehensive app. I didn't touch on everything, but these are the main things you'll need to get started. Well, there you have it. The firmware update is easy to do, and the app is a great tool for managing the radio. I haven't really dealt with things like the network calling, but the APRS features and its operation are pretty slick. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Click the notification icon so you won't miss any of our new videos. Join me over here for my in-depth review of this very cool radio. As always, thanks for watching, and 73.